Today, after driving over 500 miles, I was finally able to find the new MrBeast Lab Swarms Atomic Series lab packs at a Target Super Center. So without any further delays, let's take a look at the lab packs and see if we can find the incredibly rare and limited silver mystery case. In front of me, I have 10 MrBeast Lab Swarms Atomic Series lab packs. These are just like the old Alpha Series lab packs, where you'll get 3 characters here and 2 hidden in the test tube. The only difference is a little bit of packaging change and obviously the new swarms. So let's pick up our first lab pack and see who we get. Alright, so as I said earlier, we're trying to find the incredibly rare silver mystery case, which is this series version of the Hyperchrome Panther. But I gotta be honest, I like the Hyperchrome Panther a lot more. But anyway, let's see if we can find it and open up this lab pack. Alright, now let's see who we get. Here we have our Atomic Series test tube, so let's add water to it and then I'll show off the 5 swarms that are included in this lab pack. We added water, let's mix it up. Okay, now let's release the slime and see who we get. In our first lab pack, we got Shock Sign, who's a metallic MrBeast Squad rare, Stealth Sloth, who's a common translucent, the Jackpot Button, who's a metallic MrBeast Squad Beast icon, and then in our test tube, we found Army Ant, who's a common, and one of my new favorites, the Contaminated Cactus, who's a translucent MrBeast Squad rare. Now let's move on to our second lab pack. We're with our second lab pack, so let's open it up and see who we get. Alright, now let's let out the orange slime. Now we'll clean them off and see who we got. In our second lab pack, we found Chainjaw, who's a common, Lampworm, who's a translucent metallic MrBeast Squad rare, and then Thanos, or the Robo Panther, who's a metallic glow-in-the-dark MrBeast Squad ultra rare. And then in our test tube, we got the Hazardous Handset, who's a common, and the Manic Mailbox, who's a metallic MrBeast Squad rare. Now let's open up our third lab pack and see who we get. Alright, now let's add water to the test tube and see who we got. Now let's let out the orange slime and see who we get. In our third lab pack, we found Nitroscope, who's a common, Fish Tank, who's a speckled translucent metallic MrBeast Squad rare, and that's a really good name for him. And then we found Planet Beast, who's a metallic MrBeast Squad Beast icon, and he has MrBeast's iconic straw hat, which is very cool. Then in our test tube, we found Pumbaa from the Lion King, also known as Battle Boar, and he's a common. And then Trashed Can, who's another common. Here we are with our fourth lab pack, so let's open it up. Now let's add water to our test tube and see who we get. Okay, now let's release the slime and see who we got. In this lab pack, we found Attack Tube, who's a common, the Manic Mantis, who's a translucent metallic MrBeast Squad rare, the Mutant Panther, who's a metallic glow-in-the-dark MrBeast Squad ultra rare, and then in our test tube, we found Toilet Roll Ripper, who's a common, and then Robo Call, who's a speckled translucent metallic MrBeast Squad rare. And I think the name on this one's very cool, and I like the sparkles a lot on him. Alright, now let's rip open our fifth lab pack. Alright, now let's add water to our test tube and see who we get. Now let's mix it up. Okay, now let's empty out the orange slime. Now clean them off and see who we got. In our fifth lab pack, we found Raging Stop Sign, who's a common, Subsinker, who's a speckled translucent metallic MrBeast Squad rare, Golden Fangs, who's a metallic MrBeast Squad Beast icon, and then in our test tube, we found Goblin Goggles, who's a metallic translucent MrBeast Squad rare, and Stealth Sloth, who's a translucent common. Now let's open up our 6th lab pack. Okay, now let's add water to the test tube. Now let's mix up our test tube. Now let's empty out the orange slime. In this lab pack, we found Atomic Toilet, who's a common, Shuttershock, who's another common, and Furious Feastable, who's a metallic MrBeast Squad Beast icon. And I think this one's a pretty cool cross promotion. He even has a Feastables bar he's holding, and then it says Feastable on the back of his wrapper, which is pretty cool. Then we found Gassy Turtle, who's a common, and he definitely reminds me a lot of Terrapin from the Alpha series. And then we got Pest Tube, who's a metallic, translucent MrBeast Squad rare. Now let's rip open our 7th lab pack. Okay, now let's add water to the test tube and see who we get. Now let's empty out the Atomic Slime. In this lab pack, we found Robo Raccoon, who's a common, Scream Screen, who's a speckled, translucent, metallic MrBeast Squad rare, and he reminds me a lot of Squid Vision from the Alpha series. Then we found Gold Jaw Panther, who's a metallic, glow-in-the-dark MrBeast Squad ultra rare, but I'm not sure why they named him Gold Jaw Panther, since in the Alpha series there was a swarm called the Gold Jaw Panther. The only difference is this one has a space between Gold and Jaw, but he's still pretty cool. Then we found Manic Mailbox, who's a metallic MrBeast Squad rare, and the Hazardous Handset, who's just a common. Now let's open up our next lab pack. Okay, now let's add water. Now let's release the slime. In this lab pack, we found Boom Goggles, who's a common, Septic Shark, who's another common, the Viper Panther, who's a metallic MrBeast Squad Beast icon, and then in our test tube, we found Chain Jaw, who's a common, and Contamatoad, who's a translucent common. Now let's rip open our 9th lab pack. Okay, now let's add water to the test tube. Now let's empty out the slime and see who we get. This lab pack, we got Lab Lion, who's a common, and I love orange cats and lions, so even though this one's just a common, I like him a lot, and I hope we can find his rare alternate version, the Iron Lion. Then we found Steel Nose, who's a translucent metallic MrBeast Squad rare, Button Basher, who's a metallic MrBeast Squad Beast icon, and then in the test tube, we got Mutant Mailbox, who's a common, and another Contamatoad, who's a translucent common. Now let's move on to our final test tube. Here we are with our final lab pack, so let's open it up. Now let's add water to our final test tube and see who we get. Now for the last time, let's release the orange slime. Now let's see who we got. In this lab pack, we found Mad Mantis, who's a common, Neon Waste, who's a translucent metallic MrBeast Squad rare, the Gold Globe, who's a metallic MrBeast Squad Beast icon, Dung Flinger, who's a common, and then the Tentacle Panther, who's a metallic glow-in-the-dark MrBeast Squad ultra rare. Here's all 50 of the Atomic Lab Swarms we found in today's Ultra unboxing. Make sure to leave a comment telling me which one was your favorite, and if you want to see me open even more Atomic series, watch this video here where I open even more test tubes. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.